welcome to this episode of Biz Real Talk, where today we're talking all around identity and how it affects our businesses. So, today's topic and question is your identity battle killing your business? And to really have a deep conversation about this and unpack it, we have some great panelists with us today. And I'm going to introduce them for you now. So, Larissa, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, beautiful. I'm Larissa, CEO of Abundance Academy, and we work with professional women who have an interest in personal growth and development and want more out of life. I think so many of us that have been on this healing journey and personal growth journey, we've done the work, we've done the do, we've lived beautiful lives, and we know there's just so much more out there. And when we can create beautiful ripples across the globe, then we can shine, we can thrive, and we can have rich and fulfilling lives that we deserve and desire.
Thank you, Larissa. Next, I'm going to come to Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Vanderwalt. I'm a holistic doula and a women's health coach in the prairies of Canada. I specialize in helping women through fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, menopause, kind of a whole lifespan of a woman. I'm very passionate about whole body health, herbalism, nourishment. And when I'm not a doula, I'm a preschool teacher and I also live on a farm. So it's always busy, busy.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Amy, I'm now going to come to you, lovely.
I'm Amy from She's a CEO. I am a team and leadership strategist for female founders scaling businesses because I do believe that building strong teams behind your brand is the fastest way to scale without carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Thank you, Amy. And last but not least, we're going to come to our lovely Taylor.
Hi, my name is Taylor Smith and I'm a business consultant. So I support female entrepreneurs to package up their expertise into a premium offer to help them grow their businesses along with other financial strategies.
Thank you, Taylor. So let's jump straight in then, ladies. Now, I know that the thing that held me back the most within when I stepped into the coaching space anyway, was definitely my identity battle. I've never put my finger on that before in previous businesses because they've done well. But where in other people's businesses I could like push them to multi six and seven figures, I was never able to do that with my early businesses. And I didn't understand why up until obviously around 6 months ago it started to become big, kind of doing the healing journey and everything. Started to realize that my identity and that conflict within my identity had actually created these invisible barriers to me succeeding. So for me, I feel it plays a major part in holding us back sometimes. What are your views? And feel free, whoever wants to go first, go first.
Okay, I go first. I agree. And actually, a bit of your story kind of resonates with me. In my opinion, I believe our businesses are just a reflection of us. So if we are struggling in a certain area, it's usually because there's something within us that maybe either we're conscious of or not conscious of that's holding us back, right? So if you're struggling with sales or the selling conversation, it might be because in your head you are, oh, you can't stand pushy salespeople and you don't want to come across all salesy. It's all kind of a reflection of who you are. And it's important for I think it's important for every business owner to take some time consistently, because I also believe that actually who we are changes as we evolve and as we grow and as we learn, and we get different experiences. I think it's important for us to continuously take some time out to check on how we are, what we're doing, like how we're feeling, what are our beliefs still, all of that internal stuff that I believe is so key. I think it's important to keep checking in with yourself because you can get so wrapped up in the day to day. But because the business is a reflection of us, if we're not, clear on who we are and what we stand for, and we're not aligned with that, there's going to be some hiccups in the businesses, I believe. So yeah, and I believe it's a common thing, and I know I've definitely experienced it.
So I completely agree, like completely agree. I think for me, that battle, like, so it's something I haven't really talked about on the show yet. And it's a conversation me and you've had definitely, Taylor. It's like I look white and my dad is mixed race, and that journey, like being born with mixed race features, having relatively darker skin and then getting really light skin as I grew up, but I had blonde hair
Mm.
and it wasn't quite Afro, it wasn't quite, Caucasian hair. It sounds silly because it's appearance, but it did have like this real impact on who am I? How do I present myself? Where do I fit?
Mm.
And it was only like I'm 39 this month, and yeah, it's taken me essentially 39 years to figure out what I stand for, who I am, to stand in my truth and just be myself and not feel rejected by different communities, if that makes sense.
Makes
So, and it sounds strange, but it really did impact on how I presented myself in the business,
Mm.
in my authenticity, because I was trying to be like who I thought I should be like, and it's like, no, that doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel authentic to me. I am
Mm.
being myself, but I don't look like myself. I don't know. It just has a huge impact, I think. I want
Mm.
to come to Larissa now. Um, what are your thoughts, Larissa?
Well, I think especially in the world of business or as we're progressing, we often think about what it is that we want. And we're conditioned to focus on goals and set aspirations for ourselves and make these New Year's resolutions. But a big part that's missing is literally taking the time to carve out what the identity is of the next level of the person that's achieving your goal. You want a seven-figure business? What does that person look like, sound like, feel like, talk like? How do they make decisions? And like if you did have that, how would you actually show up? And I think it was Taylor, you were mentioning like there's this mismatch. And whenever we have a mismatch of identity, it's because we're trying to do something, but we're not there yet. And we're not comfortable where we used to be, or maybe somebody else imposed a perception of who we should be or how we should show up. And deep down, it's misaligned and our soul is just screaming and it's on fire. And so I think just even having the awareness that identity is a real thing, it's a critical component of anything we do in life, whether we're taking on the role as a mother, as a business owner, as a lover, as a fashionista, as a friend, as a fun person, as a fiscally responsible human, whatever role we're taking on in our lives, if we don't really know what identity or what aspect of identity we actually want to represent, we just default to what examples we've had set, what people have told us, and all these childhood dramas and traumas that we were conditioned to step into when we were 4 years old and someone told us like that dress is ugly on you. So all of a sudden you go, that dress is ugly. I'm ugly. Oh my gosh. And you're like, I want to be a princess, but I'm ugly. And you take on that identity for the rest of your life and you just don't try. And they're silly things, but it's a totally logical response for a 4-year-old. But we carry some of these crazy identities from the past. We don't revisit them. We're not even aware that we're doing this. And as soon as we build that awareness and really think about like what identities am I carrying from way back then? What identities am I living in now that are my truth, but also where am I going? I think really making it a holistic approach. You can't make it a canned process, but when you do take some time to think about it and be really strategic, all of a sudden your life can change so fast. Like within days, within weeks, within months, like your life can look radically different.
Mm.
No, I get that because I've always, up until this year, I was like, I'm not feminine. I'm not girly. I'm a tomboy. I'm, well, what we call here in the UK, like the term geezer bird was used a lot. or a rock chick, because I would, you know, quite often I'd be in jeans, knee-high boots, and some sort of baggy top because of being bigger. I didn't like to wear dresses, didn't like the colour pink. And when I started really exploring me, like you said, it's things that were said to me as a child because I was a bigger child. Um, People used to assume that I was lazy and I didn't exercise and that I ate too much. And it sounds silly. All of that stuff played into my identity about how I thought about myself. And that meant I was too big to wear dresses. I wasn't girly enough to wear dresses. I wasn't pretty enough. I didn't fit in that mold, in that box. So I couldn't be like that. I do wear dresses and skirts a little bit and shorts a little bit more often now. But yeah, it took, like, it's only over the last 2 months doing that exploration of my identity and who I am and what I want and who what I like and all of those things. And like you said, it changes really quick because I went within 2 months to being really self-conscious, not confident, too scared to do bold and brave moves, to suddenly going, actually, this is what I want. This is how I need to achieve it. This is how I need to show up. And then I put that post out for panelists for a show, made the decision I was going to do it, and like actioned it all the way through. The amount of times that in the past I would have stopped and gone, no, it's too scary. I'm not good enough. It's like, actually, no, I know what I'm doing here. I know what I'm talking about. And I'm just bringing people together. That it's not scary at all. It's just what I do behind the scenes. I'm doing it publicly, you know, but it was that identity piece that when I dug into it, gave me the confidence then take those steps. So
Sarah, I have a thought or an example to share because we have an inner identity and the outer expression of our identity. But when I first got into this space, I had been in the mind body movement industry for over a decade. So I wear yoga pants and bare feet for a living. And then I had fancy gowns and dresses for all the galas and fundraisers that we used to go to. And so I had the polar opposite end of my wardrobe. And then I got into this coaching space and I have to do lunches, I have to do talks, I have to go to conferences and wear regular people clothes. I had a son. I'm like, what do you mean a mom wardrobe? And I just didn't see that. And so I hired an image consultant. There were the one of the companies that I was working alongside, I was a consultant for Proctor Gallagher Institute. And at the first conference, I was like, these people are dressed differently. Like I'd never seen that many well-dressed people in my life. And so I hired an image consultant after that because I realized I struggled and I felt so uncomfortable, but I wanted to feel comfortable. I felt so out of place and I just didn't know what to do because I buy the same thing in every color if it fits. I don't know about you guys, but if it's the shoes, I buy the same one in every color. If it's a top, I buy the same one in every color as long as the color looks good. And so I hired her and she made me go on a shopping trip with her and she got me to try like linen pants and I was just like they're poofy in the wrong places and I was like I don't wear stuff like this. She's like, "Girl, try it on and shut your mouth. We're going to layer it." And I'm like, "Layering. Oh my God." And she made me buy some really what I thought was expensive at the time. I've been become educated, but investment pieces. And then she bought some cheap and cheerful pieces. And I was having a heart attack going, I'm paying how much for a jacket? Like you want me to, and she's like, you're gonna do it. Like you're in business. Like if you want to earn $1 million, you dress like $1 million. And so she gave me some really tough love, but I walked out of there and I started playing with my outfits but I started dressing the part and it felt so different. I felt so much more put together. And now I still hire her before a photo shoot or before a speaking opportunity or before something big. And then I learn from her and I can go out on my own. So funny story. My son, he's 7, he's a fashionista, but I bought this is I would never wear a baggy top. It's kind of funny, but it's got a cute heart. This is not something I would have ever given myself permission to buy, but we're at the cottage, so I figure this is fun for summer. And my son's like, "Mom, that's a cute top." And to be able to actually buy something that once was out of my comfort zone, that's kind of like cute and funny and not necessarily practical, changed how I show up. But now I'm like, wow, my son's got really good taste. And if my son says it's a cute top, it's actually a cute top. And it does something to your confidence. But that's how self-image is, like how you show up, how you present yourself, not just with clothing, but the clothing can make a huge difference. So Sarah, I promise you, like I wore ruffly tops. Like the first ruffly top I bought, I was like, oh my gosh, but it worked. And so there is like a whole world out there for you to explore. But when you really think about Sarah sharing her message and planting her seeds with the world, there's like unlimited possibility because there's Zoom attire and then there's, street attire and then there's speaking attire. I'm just planting some seeds to broaden your perspective of image and how you want to show up. So you'll all go shopping after.
Yeah, I was there and I did consider. I brought I was actually in like a shopping centre in the local town. Like, we don't have a lot of shops here, okay? I'll just make that clear. It's mainly charity shops. You haven't got a lot of big stores. You have to travel like 25 miles away to go to like the nearest city to Norwich to get like you got Primark, you got all the designer shops, you got like Zara. I used to love going to Zara. When I had my first child, when I had my eldest, we used to have a local Zara shop. They used to have like a whole section that was reduced. And that was great because I didn't have a huge income back then. I hadn't even stepped into business at that point. But I just loved their clothes and the quality of their clothes. So I used to dress in Zara all the time. And then it became like Tesco's or Asda. Taylor will know what I mean by that. Just like supermarket clothes. Um, but I was literally I was in there and I walked past this charity shop and we got a neon party to go to that weekend. I was like, there's a neon orange suit jacket. I'm gonna go buy it. So it's like £4. I was like, I'm just gonna buy it. I still haven't had the courage to wear it because I'm so used to wearing black. I'm so used to wearing like neutral colours or black. So my next challenge is to wear that jacket and be confident in it. So I put it on every day just to try and gain that confidence because I do like bright colours. It's the lack of confidence that stops me kind of just going, yeah, it's cool. But that's kind of my next challenge.
I can't wait for you to do it. I can't wait. I want to see a picture.
Well, I might actually wear it on one of these calls.
Just
on one of our
grocery store.
episodes.
We're everywhere.
Just surprise you all. So next, I want to come to Amy a minute. So Amy, what are your thoughts?
I think I think a lot of our identity is what we're, subconsciously what we're running away from hugely impacts how we show up and what our identity is. And that's the bit we're not always super aware of. And then the bits we're aware of are kind of what we're moving to. And I find the bits we're running away from, particularly in business, it's probably where I spend a lot of my time and have personally been impacted. Like we've chatted, Sarah, I had a son really young and I'm from a very like strict religious, well-to-do family, so having a kid at 18 out of wedlock was, very much frowned upon. And I think I took on the identity of like, I haven't ruined my life and I'm going to prove it to you all. And it took me a really long time to realize no one necessarily thought that. And if they did, they'd stop thinking it forever ago and they didn't actually care anymore. Like no one's thinking about you anywhere near as much as you think they are. And two, just how much that informed so many decisions that like proving that I hadn't run my life and that I was good enough. And I think when it came to business, like I held on to so much. I couldn't let go of things. I couldn't step into like being a leader because I was like, I have to do it all and I have to show that I'm worthy. And it didn't create a lot of space for it was quite selfish because it didn't create a lot of space for other people to step up in business and things. And so I think what's really interesting about identity is that I guess like what we've been saying is as we grow, that identity shifts because we become aware of those different subconscious things that are driving us. And for me, it is that kind of onion thing of my identity. I'm still discovering who it is, and whether that's in my next level or of like business or myself, it's really interesting to kind of go, oh, that's why I've been doing that. And I can see how that impacted everything. So for me, identity is a lot about undoing all the things I've subconsciously kind of been trying to push away from myself. And then I think the hardest thing about for me about identity, it feels a bit silly to say, it has been if I'm not those things because I was those things because of that decision, who am I? Like actually, we were just chatting before, Sarah, like I've always gotten up early to work out and work and all those things. And then this year I was saying I'm not really a morning person anymore. I'm like, so am I a morning person? Am I a night person? Look, I don't even know if I'm a morning person or a night person. So because I was just getting up early because that was the only way to fit exercise in before my kids got up kind of thing. So I think identity is this like when people go like I really know who I am and I'm like that to me that feels so foreign because every day is like am I this? I don't know. Or do I or it's like trying on clothes in terms of an identity. Like does this fit? Do I feel good in it? Do I want to be a morning person? Because I feel like I should be because then you got your exercise done by 5 a.m. Maybe I don't want to wear that like identity. Maybe I'm actually really good being a night person. And now everyone goes, oh, you're always up early. I'm like, no, I'm not. And they're like, what do you mean? You're a morning person. And I'm like, I don't know if I am. Like this year I haven't been. So I just find identity, I don't think I have an identity. I think I'm just this evolving person of like actually learning to be comfortable in what I do and don't like, and that not being impacted by, well, lessening the impact of that by the things that impacted me growing up, or the identity of like needing to prove I haven't ruled my life because I had a child young. So I would I say I know myself? No. Do I have like the solid identity? No, but I'm like really good with that because I'm just this evolving person of like learning to like whoever I am at that time.
No, I know what you mean. It's almost like a revolving door because every time you think you've figured out your identity, it's like I guess when you're on a healing journey, especially, you get that extra bit of growth, or even in business, you hit your next level, and that next layer is there, another level, another devil kind of thing, because your identity then switches a little bit more, and it can sometimes take a little while to navigate that and feel comfortable with where you fit into that, if that makes sense. And I think for me, actually, just recently over the last few days, um, like if people used to say to me, "Oh, you've changed," you can go through that little growth spurt, um, personally and professionally, and say, "Oh, you've changed." I always think, "Oh my God, if I've changed, then that means it was a negative. I saw it as negative." And this week, it's like, "Thank you," because it means I know I'm growing as a person. I'm stepping into stepping closer to who I want to be and what I want to achieve. But I think there's so many people when someone says to them, "You've changed," you instantly take that as a negative, as in, I'm forgetting where I came from,
Mm.
and I'm forgetting, I don't know, it just, that really, it's one of them, it feels uncomfortable, or used to feel uncomfortable to me when people used to say that. And now I just see it as a celebration of me growing and stepping in. I think other people's perceptions, especially, like you said, that judgment of you becoming a mum at 18, I had that because obviously I had my eldest 3 days after my 18th birthday. Um, I think that majorly shaped my identity in my 20s, you know, and it's that fear of judgment. And I think trying to live up to what we feel are other people's expectations of us, I think that can also impact our identity, or has a knock-on effect. Like whether it's life or business, it's all going to have a knock-on effect. They overlap. You can't avoid it. And I guess it's a kind of accepting it and navigating it. So, what are your thoughts, Elizabeth? We can't. We can hear you now.
Well, for the sake of saying that, not ditto, because everyone else said was really spot on. I find that also we take a lot with our identity from what other people say, as well as who we are interacting with. So for me, I mean, in my house, if I'm on a call with my friend from the States, everybody knows I'm on a call with her because my laugh is apparently very unique to that person. So they automatically know that oh, she's talking to Asia. That's her Asia laugh. So then when I'm talking with other people, then there's different laughs. So when I come out, people normally in my house are like, oh, we know exactly who you're talking to. And normally they're spot on because my laugh, I guess, is different based off each person. Funny, never noticed that before in all my life, but other people do, I guess. And you take a lot, I think it was Larissa, I hope that's pronunciation correctly. I think that's what you said too, is that it does shift a lot from what people say. I mean, I've been plus size all my life and I was bullied a lot in school. And so I have, even to this day, as much as I try to work through it, there are still things people say that have stuck with me. And I mean, I was 5, 6, 7, right? And that stuff is like, oh yeah, 25, you're still going to think about that randomly on a Tuesday evening before bed, right? But those shifts that people have said, they make, I think they kind of shift who you are because you're trying to fit in. And so during COVID, with everything like that, I was home and I was like, you know what, I'm so sick of doing everything that everybody else wants. I'm like, I'm so over it. Like, I kind of just was like, well, if I have to be locked in my home, well, then after this, like, nobody's going to get me to do anything that they want ever again. I was like, nope, forget it. Didn't sell me on the idea. So I had a really big issue with wearing pants because a lot of people had, commented on that, on how I looked in them. Not to come off too harsh, but my arse looked pretty big in it. So, people had a lot to say about that. And so I never wore them. And then after COVID, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna wear pants, and I'm so glad I did before I moved here to the prairies because it gets cold. But you want pants. So I think that shift a lot. That plays a big part into who you are and what people say. Not to copy too much of what everybody else kind of said on that, but everyone was very spot on with what they stated.
I think you're right. It's what's come up, I think, for all of us. One thing I've noticed is that other people's opinions, other people's kind
Yeah.
of judgments or little remarks, or it tends to have a big impact on how we see ourselves. And like you all said right at the very, very beginning of this conversation, that impacts then how we show up. So I guess what are the ways in which we can, those that are watching can navigate this kind of journey and start to almost identify where it's showing up in their business. And obviously it's going to show up in life too, right? It's going to mirror both sides of the coin. So how can they start to kind of identify those things initially is where I want to go with that.
I was thinking that when you're in business, especially like when you step into business, because we're looking at, is this identity battle killing your business, or is it like actually moving it forward?
Yeah.
So a lot of people have an identity in these other roles, but we don't necessarily have an identity in business. And sometimes we might be really good at what we do. So maybe you're a great graphic designer, or you're a great dog groomer, or you're great at what you do, but then all of a sudden this superpower you have, you turn it into a business. But business is a totally different set of skills than just being really good at what you do. And so often when people take their hobbies and try to turn them into businesses, they don't have the business skills or even the identity of what a business owner is. And Taylor, I'm sure you see this all the time with your clients, because so first you've got to like take on the identity of like, I'm actually a business owner, or maybe in the beginning you're a solopreneur and then you hire a few teammates and then you're like, you're a leader, or you're a manager, or you're a team leader. And then you might be scaling your business. And so all of a sudden you've got to do visibility. If you're scaling, you've got to be out there. So you adopt the identity of like a thought leader or someone that puts their messages out there clearly to the world. At some point, if you keep scaling or keep growing, maybe you take on like the actual identity of a CEO, the person doing the thinking and not the execution in the business. So there's very different identities and skill sets and behaviors and decisions and just ways of being that go along with each of these, and none are right, none are wrong, they're all good. It's just a matter of where are you, how are you expressing yourself, and like where are you moving into at this phase. Because I think a couple times it's already been mentioned that this is not a stagnant process. Like you're always going to be evolving, and you're never going to just create this one identity and stay there. You have to keep growing. Or Ray Kroc says, if when you're green, you're growing, when you ripe, you rot. And none of us want to rot. I always get this image of rotten tomatoes when I hear that quote, and it just irks me. It creeps me out, but it makes me want to keep growing, meaning keep breathing life into myself and into things. And so I think from a really practical perspective, if you're having problems in your business, do you even see yourself as a business owner or an entrepreneur or whatever you want to call it? Google the definition, really look at what it actually means and find the right words for yourself. Whenever you say, I am blank, that's what you identify as. Like that's a simple way of looking at it. So I think that that's definitely one thing that I was thinking about as we had these discussions.
Thank you, Larissa. Taylor, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, I agree with so much of what Larissa has said. And I think once you can identify where you're at. So, for example, even Larissa mentioned, some people are really good at what they do. Um, but I come into contact with amazing people every day that they're amazing at what they do, but the business side or, the operational side maybe isn't their zone of genius or anything that they even enjoy doing. So once you identify, what are you identifying as, and where's your zone of genius, the thing that lights you up inside. If you can find a way to be in that zone as much as possible, and then for the areas that you don't enjoy so much or you don't feel comfortable or you just don't want to do, see if you can get support for that area. So whether it be hiring some sort of coach, consultant, or an operations manager, whatever that might look like, see if you can find someone that can do that sort of stuff. One thing as well, I always say, a lot of business owners I meet, they are looking at hiring their first couple of staff or whatever that might look like, and they want to hire another double of themselves because they're amazing what they do. Don't do that. Don't hire another you, hire the opposite to you, because they will be able to pick up all the things that you maybe don't enjoy, or they come from a different perspective, different skill set, and it will complement what you do. So I think, yeah, definitely identify and then see where you can kind of make the most of where you're amazing, and then find someone else to do the other stuff.
No, I agree with that actually, because as you know, I stepped back into my old business the last few weeks. Next week is my last week, so I can fully focus on this and my coaching and clients and things, to start maybe taking on a few more clients, have the time freedom to do that. And me and my ex-business partner, we should say we'd work together again at some point because we do make a really good team, and we couldn't be more opposite in a sense of he does not like to invest. He's not a risk taker at all. He's not the type of person you would usually see in business, because he doesn't like, unless it's in front of him and he's told this is definitely going to work and here is the proof, he will not want to invest and take that leap of faith or anything. And obviously we all know in business you have to take those risks. You have to just go for it. Yes, there has to be a level of competency behind it and discernment, and and like you said, Larissa, like skill sets. But yeah, it worked because I had the knowledge that he didn't, the business knowledge. That's why his dad brought me in, is because he knew I had the business knowledge, he'd done leadership roles but not had the business knowledge. I was very much a risk taker, like I said, and he didn't. So we used to find the compromise in the middle, and the business grew like massively in the time that we worked together. You know, he was very reluctant to employ staff because he struggles with trust. Albeit I struggled with trust, I understood that from a business perspective, for productivity, we needed to have more hands and we needed them in different areas. So I completely get what you mean. Opposite, you know,
Mm,
highly opposite of you
mm,
is, you know, and as far as like skill sets that you don't have when you step into business, you know, there's ways if you've got those skills gaps, there's ways of learning them. But if you're wanting to grow quick, you might not necessarily have the time to learn all of those skills straight away. So you've got things like skill swaps. If you haven't got funding, like if you haven't got the savings there, get yourself in the room with people who have got the same kind of values and morals as you that you can gel with and work really well with, that have different skill sets, and you skill swap. It
mm,
just, you know, it takes trust. Granted, it takes a lot of trust. So if you're not trusting of people, do some work on you and
mm.
so that you can take that step. But there's always a way around it. I said this in the other episode. Skill swaps are great if you haven't got the financial investment made. But yeah, it's more than just identity, isn't it? There's a whole bigger conversation around it is than just is the identity battle, you know,
Mm.
killing your business. There's lots of different golden threads there that you could follow. Amy, what are your thoughts? Are those maybe kind of practical from a practical perspective of things to look for, maybe to start identifying what's playing out?
Oh, it's such a big topic, which I love and I know can feel overwhelming. I think one of the things that, particularly when we're speaking about business like owners, that and particularly females that I see is there's a lot of noise, I would say, on the internet about, and I mean this with like much respect, manifestation, like self-leadership, being confident, and not actually what are the practical tools to do that. And I think that's a really, and that's particularly the world I play in, like building a team, like be confident and da, da, da. Like there's practical skills that you can learn on how to be a really good team leader. Like I've not, and I know that founders don't always make the best CEOs, but I think people tap out of like learning the skills because we don't give them the practical skills. We're like, be a good leader. What does that even mean? Like what is a good leader and how does that show up in the day-to-day of building a team from scratch? And I don't have HR behind me. And so I would I think the skills swap is a great idea, but I think um in becoming a leader, it's really understanding what that is because with the woman I work with, we are really like, what do you want to, what type of leader do you want to be? And then what does, you know, if it's you know, the hype rah rah like fronting of the company, that's amazing. What are the skill sets behind so that because what I'll see a lot is people are great at selling their vision and then the day-to-day for their staff doesn't look like what they got sold on. So how do we align with what you do day to day with how we're achieving that vision of the business? And these are all really practical skills. And I don't think that I would sit here and go, these are the skills you need. I think there's bigger conversations to be had there. But one of the things that I think is so, so important in helping businesses, and it's a very practical step, is everyone understanding what success looks like. I think founders know what it is in their head. They're not particularly great at communicating it, but when you have your whole team understand what success looks like and then what's for the business and what success looks like in their role, people have more motivation and purpose in their roles and you feel as founders, I think founders feel more aligned with their team and more confident to lead them because you're all pushing to the same thing. I think some of the insecurity can come from like, I don't know if they respect me. I don't know if I can lead them because I'm not really a leader. I was just really good at designing bikinis, and now like all these people work for me, but they know I'm not a leader. And so I think being really clear on what you're all aiming to achieve and working towards that. Like we spend so much time on this with my clients, and it makes a huge amount of difference in their business. So for me, one of the first things I'm always like is, what does success look like for your business in 12 months? And then what does success look like for each of those people there to help you achieve it in 12 months? And when you do that one simple thing, people get really clear on what they're aiming to achieve. And you focus on that, and rather than the like bigger picture, wafflier things of like, how do I be confident and how do I manifest this goal? It's like, that's amazing. And there is absolutely a need for that, but you've got to do the practical steps. And so that's probably always my number one, is what does success look like and how we working to achieving it every single day.
Yeah, when I think of my identity within different roles, especially within different leadership roles, when I think back, it changed from each one. I learned and grew from each one. Um, I don't think I would be that type of leader again in that I was in any of those roles. But I remember listening to an audiobook about different leadership styles. And because obviously we're doing coaching, it is a leadership role now. It's even though I was in leadership roles before within the other businesses, this is a step up for me. This is like the next kind of step, next part of my journey. Like, so I wanted to make sure I got it right. But I remember listening to this book, and it made me think. And like in one of the businesses where it's 5 bars, for example, and the team were quite young, there's a lot of staff. I was unofficially in this leadership role, in the supervisor role, and I had a certain expectation level. I've always I know about myself now that I expect a certain level of quality and certain standards, and I hold everybody to that standard. And I can get quite snappy if I don't see that standard being upheld. And then, yeah, in my own businesses, even I had that really high standard, I started micromanaging because I was like, okay, not meeting that standard. I don't want to upset them, so I'm going to micromanage. And if they're struggling, I'm just going to do it. And then they won't feel bad because that they can't reach up. Now I found that happy medium, but it took such a long time. And again, that was part of the lack of identity, me not quite knowing my identity and wanting to be everyone's friend, wanting to people please, wanting to make sure everybody was happy and thriving, but wasn't doing it in a way that allowed them to step up, if that makes sense. And that definitely showed. I mean, I'll give you an example. So a few years ago, since I was a little girl, I so basically I got hurt by a bully back when I was like 8 years old, and I had my head smashed into a brick wall. And I had a little chip of bone about here on my head that just stayed there. And it created over the years. I just had this lump, didn't know what it was. They just left it there. And what happened, it created a cyst that attached to my skull. And they had to remove it a few years ago. So I took the day off, got my staff in, business partner was there. So booked in, went in for this operation. While I was in the hospital waiting to go into surgery, my phone was going non-stop. And I was literally on business calls the whole time, quoting jobs, doing basically everything that was being paid to be done elsewhere. When I got out of surgery, again, my phone was full of notifications and missed calls. They knew I was in hospital. And the nurse turned around to me. She was like, Sarah, what are you doing? I was like, oh, well, now I'm fine. Now I've got like, I had half of my head shaved and like yeah, I'll put pictures up if I can find them just so you can see them. But essentially, they made me stop, have a sandwich and have a coffee. And they went, where are you going? Because I grabbed my car keys. I went, I've got to go to work. I'm needed. Have you not seen my phone? And literally within 20 minutes of coming out of theatre, I was back at the shop working, essentially micromanaging. I would never do that again. I just point that out. I've grown so much now as far as my personal and professional development. Never again would I put myself in that position. But that just gives an example of how much the that part of my identity of wanting to keep everybody happy, customers, my business partners, staff. I literally had customers standing at the shop waiting for me to get there because they wouldn't deal with my staff. They wanted me personally to do that work. Never ever will I put myself in that position again. But it was down to that. This is why I wanted to discuss identity, because it was it's the identity battle that I've had over the last decade and a half, just over a decade and a half, that actually created a lot of my obstacles in getting that balance between me as a mum, me as a person, me as a friend, partner, or wife, and as a business owner. And I think it's quite a common thing. I see it so much in my own clients, and it takes a lot to get them to pull in to themselves and realize that they don't have to work 90-hour weeks. They don't have to work 24 hours straight, that they can, take time for themselves and structure their business in a way that actually works for them and allows them to understand themselves and grow and still be
Can I
successful.
just say on that, Sarah, one thing, and this is where, this is why I love the work I do, is that can be quite hard to do. And so one of the reframes that I like to give in that scenario, and this is like my core value, is that leadership is service. So in that situation, when those customers don't want to deal with anyone but you, the disservice in that is that you've not given your staff the opportunity to be able to step up and be able to service them at the same level you would. And so when I say the practical skills around leadership, one of them is when you stop it being I need to be better at setting boundaries and I need to put myself first, and you go, how do every single one of these people, how do I enable them to be the best version of them and to step up and be the next version of them? That's leadership as service. And so when you focus on it that way, that is leadership, helping them be the best version of them, it can be less overwhelming because it's not that internal focus. But in doing that, you start to develop the identity of or whatever identity you want, but it can take the focus off who am I, what's the type of leader I want to be. When I focus on other people, I find what I love, and you can find what you love in doing that. And most leaders I work with, when we reframe it that way, it's less big and more practical in the day to day. And then they see other people thrive. And I suspect for the people here and the people that watch this, we're not just here because we want to be the leader everyone follows. We want to see people succeed. That is, I don't know, for me, that's the best bit when I see people that I'm working with thrive. I'm yes. So
Yeah, definitely. For me, even within those businesses, the women I trained, I say women because it was predominantly women. The reason I did that was because I wanted them to be able to, a lot of the people I trained, whether it was them as volunteering or whether they came to work for me, this case, if they needed more, they felt like they needed more than being a mum, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to work your typical 9 to 5 job, or they'd had a lot of time out of the workplace because of being a parent or a carer to a loved one. So it was okay, I wanted them to be able to step into their own and use their skill sets and those transferable skills, and then one, be able to have it on their CV if they was to go out there, so they felt confident, learn new skills, be able to be independent and just shine. Like you say, it's about them just being able to step and shine. And I think that's where I very first started feeling a real disconnect to that particular business, because I didn't feel like everyone thought that my aim within that business was to make lots of money. Actually, my aim within that business was, one, to be able to give back, and two, to be able to give my children the life they deserved. It wasn't one or the other, it was both. And I didn't feel like I was doing either of those. And it was there's a major disconnect here. Me being able to work through my identity the last few months and step into this, one of the things my coach says to me is, think about what you feel success is for you, and envision it, like the manifestation, the visualization side of it. This is where it plays in that aspect, is visualize what you want your life to look like and how you can start living parts of that now. And you feel, when you feel like you're getting close to that, it fills you up, it lights you up, and it gives you that energy and that motivation to keep going. And one of the things I wanted to do, one thing that I see is successful for me, is my children being, especially being additional needs, being regulated and being happy and not fearing going to school, and to be able to homeschool them in a way where they're thriving emotionally, mentally, physically, academically, in every area. And I was like, okay, there's a situation that happened at school, and I just thought, no more. No more. I'm giving it 3 months. They're not going back in September. The school don't know yet. They're not going, well, they will if any of them are watching this. They're not going back in September. Yeah, I've started within 2 hours. I started putting provisions in place, ready for September, for them to be homeschooled. I'm just like, yes, because I feel like I am moving forward towards that success, what I feel is success for me. And I think it's different for everybody. But the identity piece played into that. That's going to impact business. But where people think that it's going to impact business negatively, actually it's the complete opposite, because it gives me more time freedom within my business. It gives my kids, like, it's just, yeah, it's just a positive. I think we really need to look at what success is to us, and the steps we need to take, the skills we need, and who we want to be able to achieve that. I mean, am I completely off the mark here, or is it like, Elizabeth, we haven't heard much from you, lovely. What are your thoughts? Because especially being obviously from a teaching background, I know I'm a teaching assistant, I'm a qualified teaching assistant. Refuse to work in schools ever again. Fair, just because I won't be part of the problem. Your school is completely different. You work in a school that has the teachers, and it's a community school, I want to say. So it's
ours is private. Yeah, it's a private,
yeah.
like nonprofit preschool a little bit. So, but I was homeschooled, so I'm biased, but best decision ever. So, I mean, that could play into the whole. I started to not care what other people think on how I look and all that. So that could have played a big part in it. So hopefully that applies very well to your children as well. So yeah, I just have agreed with everyone. I don't want to kind of like repeat the same thing other people have said, because it's like, oh, that's what I was gonna say. Never mind, it's all good. She got it. So yeah,
It's nice that we're all kind of on the same page
similar.
with that. Yeah. I think the thought process for all of us have, like, I think every single one of us here has been in those professional roles, whether it be self-employed or corporate or whatever it may be. We've all been within these kind of industries now for over a decade. So maybe that's why we're quite cohesive in our thought pattern here. So I guess at the moment I'm thinking to myself, for those that are maybe new on this journey, what are the sort of things we can, just to round off this conversation, what are the things we can say to them to help them progress forward? What would be like the first kind of thing? What would be the main takeaways from this conversation? A starting point for them to look at, to see, one, if it's impacting their business, and two, how they can kind of start to resolve any issues that they're finding.
Just from my perspective, even if you don't believe something's impacting your business, so like if you're having struggles in certain areas, then absolutely. But even if you think things are ticking along well, I'm so happy for you. But I believe that continuous work on yourself, on your kind of, so many people have touched on this already, like your beliefs, your core values, like what you're actually working towards, and really take some time to really think about that, like not just, oh, I want to make $1 million, whatever it is, like do what what difference do you actually want to make? Like who do you actually want to help? What actually lights you up inside? Not just doing a job because you can get paid for it, you know? I think continuously making sure that what you're building in your business is taking you closer to what that ideal is, I think is important. And I don't think you're ever gonna, well, maybe some people do. I don't believe you're ever just gonna make it. I've made this and that's it, you know? Like I think it is a continuous lifelong journey of learning and evolving. And I think the quicker you can get on board with the fact that this is going to be continuous, um, and to really find something meaningful for you, whatever that might look like, I think the more advantage you would have and the quicker you'll come into line and the quicker your business will come into line and the quicker you'll feel fulfilled. Because if you don't have something that's lighting you up inside, and if it is just, you know, oh, I want to live in that country, or I want to have see this in my bank account, when you actually reach that goal, and I've spoken to so many amazing successful entrepreneurs, when you hit that number or whatever that might look like, it feels empty. And you might think, oh, that's good for these people that are, you know, high flyers. But honestly, it is consistent, like it's empty. So find something that means something, you know, and you can make money doing it. That's amazing. Like, you know, that's incredible. That's just a plus. But find something that means something and take some serious time to think about that and understand that it's a continuous journey. I don't know if that answered your question. I hope it did.
It does. I completely agree. I don't have obviously we all set goals, right? So I don't have my focus isn't on the monetary goal. My focus is, and I've left it 6 months before I've actually launched anything this year, right? Okay. So I've got essentially 6 months to help 100,000 women because that was my goal for 2025 was to help 100,000 women. I'm determined to do it. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. Hopefully this show does it, you know, but that is my goal. In one way or the other, I want to help 100,000 women in 2025. That's from here. That
Mm.
isn't about anything else other than, and that's my motivator. I guess you have to find your motivator, right? What you see as success and what your motivator is, put them together, and hopefully that is the thing that keeps the motivation going and the momentum going.
Mhm.
Amy?
I think kind of further to Taylor's point, I don't think anyone's goal is the money, it's the experience of the money. And so it's thinking about what you want your experience of. Like if your goal is to have $100 million in your bank account, what is the experience that you want of having? It's to travel, it's to be more present with your family, it's to whatever that is. When you can articulate what that is, you can start to implement that now. And this is one of the things that with the woman I work with, they're like, when I get to 100 million in annual revenue, I will. And I'm like, if you've not built your business to allow you to travel 6 months a year when you're at 100 million in annual revenue, you still won't be able to travel 6 months of the year. So whatever you're desiring your experiences to be, if you've around like your financial goals, because I'm not going to say don't have the financial goals, start to create them now. So as Taylor said, you don't get to that goal and then you don't have the life you thought and you're like, what on earth? Because whatever you're desiring, you can create now. If it's to be more present, but you're working 16-hour days, be present, do the work. But when you're with your family and or your partner or your mum or your dog, and it's only for 20 minutes and you feel guilty because it's only for 20 minutes, just be very present for the 20 minutes because that is the experience that you're desiring when you get to. But you don't need to wait. You don't need to be at that to start creating it now. And I think that is the most important thing is whatever you desire, you can create it now.
Thank you, Amy. Larissa?
Yeah, beautiful. And one of the things that we started doing probably, I remember after I had my son. So we had my son many I guess you guys had your sons earlier, your children earlier. I had my son later. I was in the geriatric department having my child. So I remember sitting down and doing this work, and I'd done like 20 plus years of personal growth and development work. And I remember sitting down and I had to create a life's vision. And I was beside myself. I was in tears and I'm like, this seems like a simple assignment. It seems like a simple thing, but I didn't even know what I wanted. And so it did take time to create that vision for the life and business. And over time, we ended up, I found like so many different vision casting processes. And I found one in a random training I attended, and they did it in 10 minutes. And I remember those 10 minutes changed my life because it gave me like a very different way of looking at it. And so we really looked at the identity, like who do you want to be in each area? What do you want to do? What do you want to have and why? And we put it in columns and boxes. And so I've taken this process and expanded it and built on it. And now I teach it over a week-long period, an hour a day, instead of just like in 10 minutes. Because I think there's so much value when you take the time to really create that vision. And it's been said a couple of times, and it will keep evolving, just like your self-image will keep evolving, just like your business will keep evolving. But what most people do find is you can live your dream life now, just like Amy was saying. But you've got to decide what it is that you want. And when you can really look at who are you, what are you doing, what do you want to have, and why, there's a lot of guilt with the having that many people that tend to come across. Sometimes there's a holding back of the image or of the courage. And with the actions, a lot of people are not clear on the actions that bridge the gap between who they are and what they actually truly want. And I think when we start looking at our lives in a holistic way, magic can happen. And it doesn't matter whether it's in life or business, but it's our job to create positive ripples. I tell my clients, I'm like, go sprinkle fairy dust on people. They might have no clue what you're doing. They might not understand you. Don't try to explain it, but go sprinkle fairy dust on someone around you in your life, make their lives better. And that's your job. Like wherever and whatever you're doing, always leave people with an impression of increase, because when you do, like you will hold your head up high no matter what is falling apart around you, and you're going to find the good in something.
No, that's so true. I think it's like everyone's nodding. That is completely and utterly true. As woo-woo as you know, some things can seem, because that terminology gets used quite a lot, doesn't it, woo-woo? But actually, most of it is just science. Most of it is just, creating a different mindset in a way that this is how I described it earlier. We will close off with Elizabeth in a minute, but just to put it into context, we was talking about neuro pathways earlier on. They're like, why do you do this, that, and the other now? I was like, because what it does, it creates new neuro pathways that bypass all of the negative stuff that my brain was kind of took in as a child, and it helps me progress quicker. And so it's just basic science. And like, oh, we'd have called it woo-woo. I went, it's not woo-woo, it's just science. The two go hand in hand, and it makes a huge impact. Huge impact. And then it has a positive knock-on effect with everybody else around you. And then obviously we want a nicer world to live in, right? I think the whole world peace thing, I don't think we're ever really going to achieve that. But if we can make our worlds around us nicer for our families, and whether that's through business, whether that's through, charity work, whatever it might be, it all has a place. It all has a place. And actually, it's our identity that kind of, us being confident in our identity allows us to like help other people. And that just makes the world a better place. That might even sound a little bit kind of childish, that kind of 7-year-old going, I want to change the world. But it's just what I believe. Elizabeth?
Well, kind of a different take on everybody else's, a little bit, not too much though, but I think just being authentic. People love authentic and vulnerable, and like hearing everybody's stories, like that's how you connect to people. So when you're in business and you're trying to deal with people, I don't want a beat bot robot kind of vibe. I want to get to know, like about how you're saying that you were a younger mom, like those things you could connect maybe more with Amy then. And my mother was older, so right away I was like, oh, with Larissa, I was like, right away I thought of my mother. So like that's how we connect. At even through business, we connect through people, and people have stories. And so I think I'm just always on the firm path of like, be authentic and be yourself, because that's who I want to get to know, not this corporate robot.
So I think in conclusion, really, I won't use the word in conclusion, but kind of just to round up the conversation we've had, identity does play a massive role and can potentially, be the downfall of our businesses if we don't kind of catch, which parts are triggering, you know, unhealthy patterns, let's say, in our businesses that are playing out. But obviously if we're just look a little bit deeper at ourselves and what those patterns are, and think self self-acknowledgement maybe. So what phrase would you guys use? Self-acceptance, maybe?
Self-love.
Self-analyze, maybe.
Say that again, Taylor.
Self-analyze, maybe.
Yeah, just basically taking a little bit of a deep look at us and why we're doing the things we're doing and what it is we want, what success looks like for us, kind of all of those bits and pieces and how it's playing out, and maybe avoid how the negative impact it can have on our businesses. But I think there's definitely lots more episodes that go into this conversation, or the little strands off of this conversation. There's definitely going to be episodes for our viewers to watch to really deep dive on it. But thank you for the conversation, guys. Thank you for, giving up your time and your knowledge and telling your stories. And yeah, just big, big love and thank yous to you all. For those viewers, if you've enjoyed the conversation, we would love to see you on the next episode. So hit that subscribe and we'll see you next time.